Hi everyone. In this video today, I'm going to take you through some of the latest oral exam questions that are being asked of deck officers. Most of these questions are related to chief mate masters orals, but some of these questions could also be asked of second mate candidates as well. So please watch this video carefully and choose the questions that you feel that you don't know answer to and be prepared accordingly. Now remember, this video is only about the questions. I am not giving you the answers, but I have answered most of these questions in my other videos, or I will prepare the answers to some of these questions that I have not addressed before. Just note down the questions for now and start preparing for oral exams accordingly. So the question asked was, what is the validity of the ISM certificate? If you are a newly joined chief officer and the vessel is proceeding from India to China, how will you proceed in regarding garbage? Of course, here you have to talk about the garbage management plan. Sometimes if you have not answered this question very well, then the surveyor might ask you some additional questions about oil record book and its maintenance as well. So you can, or you should rather, familiarize yourself with the entries made in the oil record book as well. The candidate was also shown an actual loading plan and asked what if the candidate can identify if there is anything wrong with the plan. So the candidate, of course, depends on what you see in that loading plan, but have a look at the draft, the trim, the distribution of weights, the load density, so on and so forth. What precautions will you follow when carrying wood chips as a cargo? So again, here the candidate is expected to know about bulk cargo, so maybe refer to IMS-BC code as well, and start talking about the precautions that you normally require for bulk cargo. But if you know or remember the properties of wood chips, considering that it may be a flammable cargo, then think about some of those precautions as well. And the sixth question was, you are loading a huge truck which is classified under a heavy lift cargo. The surveyor may not mention that, but they might mention a cargo like a huge truck which indicates that it is a heavy lift cargo. Then what will your actions be, both as a chief officer or as a duty officer on the watch? Sorry. Then the candidate was asked the use of dunnage. As you know, dunnage is mainly required for reducing friction, or sometimes for lashing purposes, helps with the lashing as well, helps in the load distribution as well. How will you go about systematically loading a tanker? Now, remember, when this question is asked, answer like a chief officer. Make sure that your answer covers how a chief officer goes about actually loading a tanker. Don't give your answer in a random sequence of events, as you remember, but if you need time, then just write down the dot points and then go about it systematically, right from the first step to the last step. Don't feel that there is anything that you can exclude. Just include whatever you can. No point is a small point. Every point is pertinent for you to get the points from the surveyor. What are the contents of the cargo securing manual? You should be knowing this, that what are the details carried out in a cargo securing manual. This is especially if your ship does not carry cargo securing manual. So all those ships like tankers, people who sail on tankers may not be very familiar. So these are the questions asked normally of those candidates. You are joining the livestock carrier as a chief officer. What do you check for? So remember to brush up on your concepts. I've already made 2 videos on livestock carrier, so make sure you watch those videos and prepare our answer accordingly. You are expected to experience heavy weather on proceeding to sea. What are your actions as chief officer? So of course here the cargo is not mentioned, so start talking generally, and then also start assuming things like, if you're carrying deck cargo, how would you go about lashing, informing department heads, thinking about the stability aspects, so on and so forth. Securing of the cargo and securing of the vessel becomes very important here. Talk about safety, talk about crew safety, talk about ship safety. Remember, safety is cannot be understated enough in every answer. The more you mention about safety, the more impression you will create on the surveyor. And draw the load lines of a vessel and explain the freshwater allowance. So often students are asked about the definition of freshwater allowance, and if the student just recites the memorized definition, then the surveyor will often ask you to draw the load lines and explain the definition as well. What are your concerns when ship is proceeding from freshwater to seawater? So here, of course, the surveyor wants to know whether you know the impact of density on draft and displacement. what are the load line considerations, what are the load line zones, all these questions come into play. So remember, once the surveyor starts to talk about load lines, you should become alert that yes, there will be more questions about load lines and there will be some related questions. So let me start mentioning whatever I know about load lines and load line zones and how vessel complies with load line requirements, so that the surveyor is impressed from the word go, and they don't ask much deeper questions in this topic. Finally, the surveyor asked to draw and explain the GZ curve. And so the students not only should draw the GZ curve but also explain the different parts of it. Remember that once you start labeling the GZ curve, there could be some follow-up questions. For example, what is the immersion of the deck edge? What does that signify? And what is the area under the curve? What is the importance of that? So remember, all those questions may be coming up as a follow-up. So make sure that you start explaining it before the surveyor asks, so that the surveyor can see or sense your confidence regarding this topic. What is free suffix effect, and explain using diagrams. So often students can talk about something but they cannot explain it with a diagram, or cannot show the actual impact it has on the ship. So make sure that you practice your diagrams in ship stability and other topics as well, especially to show the impact of phenomena that occurs on the ship, on ship stability. How will you enter the dry dock? So here, of course, they want you to answer like a chief officer, and they want you to answer from a stability perspective. So start talking about the preparing the vessel in terms of entering the dry dock, but also talk about what is the change in the stability or in the GM, or the forces experienced when the vessel starts entering the dry dock, hits the block first, and then when the whole vessel is sitting on the block. You should be able to find the answers in the stability books. Then the surveyor says you are in open sea and you experience steering gear failure. What will be your actions? So make sure you talk about the emergency steering gear or follow-up steering gear, and how do you go about steering, how do you maintain communications, how do you switch over, all that, calling master, calling helmsman on board on the bridge, start marking positions, start alerting the vessels nearby, all that come into play. And then you have managed to rectify the steering gear failure. What will be your follow-up actions? So you have to show that not only you have rectified the steering gear, but you're also ensuring that it is functioning and there are no errors, and the vessel is proceeding as required, the vessel is responding to the helm orders as required. What will be some of the checks, what will be some of the precautions that you will follow? So talk about all that. So this was part one of some of the questions I've received from the candidates who are undergoing oral examination right now, and I will make part two very soon, so that you can continue to note down these questions. I just mentioned some of the answer to these questions briefly in passing, but some of the questions have been discussed in detail in my other videos. Otherwise, you will see that I will be making videos on these topics as well. The reason I don't discuss the answers in details to all these questions is because the videos will become very long, and I want you to have these questions as soon as possible, so that you can start preparing for oral examination and be confident that you know answers to all these questions. Thank you for watching my videos. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you soon with my next video. Bye for now.